Welcome back. Let's discuss education matters now. In a sweeping policy shift, the Nigerian government has declared an immediate 7-year ban on the creation of new federal universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education in the country. The Minister of Education, Tunji Alausa, who briefed State House correspondents at the end of the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by President Bola Tinubu at the Council Chamber, that's the presidential villa now, Abuja, over the week, explained that access to tertiary education in Nigeria is no longer a major issue. He, however, stated that the duplication of federal institutions has spread resources thinly, resulting in some universities operating far below their capacity. Alausa says the objective is to enhance the quality of education and preserve the international reputation of Nigerian graduates, cautioning that if the current trend continues, it could lead to poorly trained graduates and high unemployment rates. Take a listen now to some of what the minister said.
Today, in our country, access to tertiary education is no longer an issue. What we have now is duplication of new federal tertiary institutions. And what we're seeing is significant reduction in the carrying capacity of each of these institutions, tertiary institutions, universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. Now, we're witnessing significant deterioration of infrastructures, both physical and manpower, at these federal tertiary institutions. So, and if we do not act decisively, we'll have significant reduction in the quality of graduates coming out of these institutions, which will impact our global rating and the respect that the international community has for the graduates, for the people graduating from our universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. And if we don't act decisively as well, the unemployment rate will worsen because hundreds of thousands of these graduates will not have life skills at all, which will eventually lead to significant reduction in our human capital index. Let me give you some data as well. Today, we have 72 public federal universities and about 108 state universities, as well as 159 private universities. For polytechnics, we have 42 public polytechnics, federal polytechnics, 98 state polytechnics, and 91 private polytechnics. For colleges of education, we have 28 federal colleges of education, 68 state colleges of education, and 152 private colleges of education. In areas of allied institutions that we used to call monotechnics, we have 42 public allied institutions and 54 private, giving a total of 98. We have 31 public colleges of agric and 1 private. Combined between colleges of health sciences and nursing, we have 158 public and 120 private of such institutions, which gives a total of 278 colleges of health sciences and nursing. For innovation enterprise institutions, which are also degree awarding, we have 16 public and 165 private, giving a total of 181 of such institutions. Now, this is what we're seeing when I say access is no longer an issue. This 2024, 2025, 2026 academic session, about 2.1 million young Nigerians applied to JAM to go to any of our tertiary institutions, universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, colleges of agric, colleges of nursing and health sciences, as well as Innovation Enterprise Institute. The shocking data that we're seeing today, we have 199 universities that less than 99 candidates apply to seek to go to those universities. In fact, 0 candidates applied through JAM to go to 34 universities. Collectively, between 0 to 99, universities that had less than 100 candidates applying, 199. For polytechnics, we had 295 polytechnics, federal, state, and private, that had less than 99 people applying, choosing them as a choice for candidates to go there. For colleges of education, we had 219 colleges of education, federal, state, and private, that had less than 99 candidates choosing them via the JAM portal. In fact, 64 colleges of education had 0 candidates choosing them. So if we want to improve the quality of our tertiary institution and not be a laughing stock across the world, the FEC decision today is the most pragmatic and the best for our educational system, for our tertiary educational system, so that we can sustain the respect that the world has for us. We can now begin to mobilize resources to improve infrastructures, both manpower and physical infrastructures, in the current institutions that we have as a federal government.
Well, joining me to discuss all of this further is Olasunkanmi Arowolo, who is a media and governance researcher. He joins us from London, the United Kingdom. Mr. Arowolo, thank you very much for coming on the show, and thanks a lot for your time. Now, what do you make of this federal government ban or moratorium, if you like, on the establishment of more tertiary institutions in the country?
I think it's a good decision in the right direction. It's actually a courageous one, for that matter. Fine, Nigeria has a growing population, diverse population, and of course, it outspacing the capacity of what we can accommodate in our existing university. People will argue that the federal state universities, even the private, are not enough. But they have to understand the wider nuances that establishing more doesn't solve the problem. And they won't necessarily get into there. There are statistics that have shown that even there are some institutions that didn't even get any candidate at all.
Exactly.
About 32 according to the statistics. So I think it's a path to a good foundation, and it's gonna, provided that they are very strategic about it. And my position is that it is far better to have quality institutions than to have quantity. You understand? The quality should deliver quality education to the people. And of course, to multiplying university does not necessarily mean we're hitting the mark. It depends on the excellence, the environment. So I would say that basically it's a good decision if the government really mean to focus on the ones that are existing, upgrading their infrastructure, ensuring, most importantly, this affects over 90% of institutions, ensuring that there is 24/7 power supply and a reliable internet, investing in the modern libraries and facilities so that students can study day and night, and of course, funding initiative that will harmonize and, of course, digitize African journals and research, making it accessible. And of course, if you do this and you don't make power and internet available, it will be a problem. If they're able to address this key aspect of it, they will be addressing one of the sacrosanct issues ASU is pushing forward. And I think the government is making the right decision to, to put a moratorium or whatsoever suspension on the establishment of further institution. In fact, I'm aware that there are over 200 proposals requesting for more establishment.
Exactly.
That doesn't, like, casting your little seed, your limited resources, and spreading them wide, they become thin. There will be minimal impact across board. So if we have few, but they are formidable with good education quality, then we are laying a good foundation. When we are okay and established, the students and the institutions are now well self-standing and sufficient to move ahead, then we can now start thinking about expansion. We must not make a political decision of giving people because certain area have certain institution. So it's a good decision coming at a good time, and it's a very courageous one.
Yeah, you're very correct, because I know there are quite a number of communities and states that are still agitating to have more universities in their areas. Now, I mean, communities in some states that are agitating to have federal universities cited in their areas. I mean, you have situations where even senators, lawmakers go to the National Assembly promising their people or constituents that they would attract universities to their constituency and all of that. But let me ask you, this is for federal, this decision now is by the federal government and for federal universities. What about states? Because, states are also fond of establishing universities, almost all the time. Somebody would say with reckless abandon, if you like. Quite a number of states, as we know, have more universities than they can actually take care of.
Of course, I would say it's still the same principle that should apply to them. If you can't manage it, if you can't provide quality, don't just tick off your political manifestos by creating more. You understand? So you have to be very strategic. If you have institutions and they're just structures, buildings, without facilities, without equipment and the materials needs that would satisfy the people, that will help them learn, that will help them, be in an environment that can, foster the learning process, then you are doing them no good. You're just building structures with no assets in there to make real sense in their life. So I don't think the state government should do otherwise. If the federal government have made such a strategic decision, the state government should also position themselves in a place and in a position where they are aligned with the national goals to achieve similar objectives. This is how policy should work. In fact, it's not about just placing ban. There should be a policy, and policy documents should be issued explaining the strategic plans and goals, so it will be clear. Part of the problem is communication. If they communicate this clearly, then it will be known across board that this is something that our government must do, and this is something that we must not do.
So now, what about the argument of some people that, look, the more universities you have, the better access you create? If you don't have more universities, some people might be denied access to university education now, well, whether university or polytechnic or college of education. But now, that the more universities you have, the easier, for instance, it is for people to gain admission into universities. So what would you say about that argument?
Well, I think it still all boils down to statistics. If you look at the antecedents, look at what has happened. We have got how many universities across board? We've got how many federal, how many states? We have quite a number, a good number. And all the candidate applicants, they're applying to certain institutions. It will be based on some certain facts, perhaps on their judgments, or perhaps because of the geographical locations of this institution, or because of ranking. If any institution is lower ranked, it means something is wrong somewhere. It is either you do a conversion or you repurpose the funds, allocation of funds, or they should check inward. In fact, there's nothing bad closing down an institution that is not functional, an institution that is not subscribed to, because it's just waste of fund and waste of resources. You understand what I mean? So the point should be focus on the ones that are highly subscribed. Look at how you can build up the ones that are in the middle range. Work with data. What is missing? They should involve, in fact, I would advise and I would encourage the government to consider involving experts. Set up committees to go to these institutions that do some findings, know the present challenges, speak with stakeholders, know where to place these budgets. Because the data speak for itself. If we have an institution with over 1,200 staff and you have just 800 students applying, tell me, how much are they spending on human resources?
Now, do you think such institutions should probably be shut down? Maybe the students and staff moved to other schools, because, of course, you heard the Minister of Education when he spoke, and it's quite a number of universities. I mean, that there are universities that students didn't even apply to at all. And he also mentioned one that you just talked about now, where according to him, you have about 1,200 staff and less than that number of students. Don't you think maybe the government should consider placing this, that's besides the placement of this moratorium now, probably consider merging some universities, shutting some down?
I believe and I'm convinced that the best decision to make is to check, to take stock, work with facts, work with data. Why are these institutions not subscribed to? Check the geographical location. There's no point setting up a plaza in a place where where people won't come to buy. If I've just got a population in a local government of about 1,000 or 1,000,000, okay, let's say 1,000 to 500 to 500 to 1,000, and I set up a university in that community, what do I expect? Fine, it might be a strategic move when you're trying to, develop such community, but you don't do that when there are other priorities. We need to arrange our priorities and put it right. Work with data. If it is an institution that is already positioned in a strategic location and people just don't know about the institution, then such institution needs to work on their corporate branding, work on their comms, do strategic adverts, and work with bigger brands, work with celebrities that can put their face out there. There's quite a number of institutions that exist and no one knows. College of Education, Polytechnic that exists. You even think it's just one backyard around the corner sort of institution, but you don't know there are certificate issuing institutions. But we need to go back to data, and that is my central point, and then work with the data, and that will provide us with an holistic background upon which we can make decisions. So I won't say that they should close down any school yet, but they should work with the data, confirm, verify the facts. Why is this happening? If you know, then we know what to do.
All right, Olasunkanmi Arowolo, media and governance researcher, thank you very much for coming on the program. I appreciate your time. Well, that's how much we have time for on the program this week. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.